back to First Take. Let's go to the Bengals here, where Jamarrchase has been suspended 1 game for spitting on Jalen Ramsey in Sunday's game against the Steelers. Ramsey was ejected for throwing a punch at Chase and said after the game that Chase spit on him, which Jamarrchase denied, but the league saw video and sided with Ramsey. If the suspension stands, Jamarrchase would go without pay for the Bengals' upcoming game against the Patriots. Now for a little more.
So in this situation here, wide receiver Jamarrchase spit on Jalen Ramsey, the cornerback for the Steelers, in a heated exchange, which resulted in punches. And he tried to lie and say that he didn't spit on him, but come on, uh, everyone's seen it, and you have cameras on you, and cameras from all directions, from official cameras that's on the field, game cameras. You have people that's taking pictures of you, independent media, the mainstream media. You have fans. You have everyone has cameras on you, especially when you're playing in an NFL football game. So to sit there and say that, oh man, I didn't spit on him. Man, we seen the loogie in 4K come out of your mouth and right onto him. So um, it's just, man, come on, man. At some point, and I'm seeing that he suspended 1 game without pay, and he gets paid over 400,000 a game plus bonuses. So it's just like as an adult, you should be old enough to make that, and you're making that type of money. You should be a lot more responsible, be able to, you know, control yourself a lot more. And even if you ain't making that type of money, man, we all know it's very disrespectful to spit on somebody. You asking for an ass whooping when you spit on somebody. In a heated conversation, that's gonna be the last thing I think to do. But if you're spitting on somebody, that means that you have no respect for them, and you should be expecting anything that comes as a consequence of you spitting on somebody. So you know, all actions come with consequences, and man, for somebody to lie like that, after we seen it straight up on camera, it's just crazy. But let's hear what Stephen A has to say about this.
More context here. Chase is appealing the suspension.
Sure.
I don't know how, because there's video of it, but that's okay. Are you good with the 1 game suspension, Chris Canty?
No, the league got it wrong with Jamarrchase, just like they got it wrong with Jalen Carter. And it's clear that the discipline that they doled out has not served as a deterrent, because we're talking about those incidents happening weeks apart. And the last time we saw something of that nature on an NFL field in a primetime spot was back in 1997 with Bill Romanowski spitting on J.J. Stokes. And here's the thing that I'm most concerned about, y'all. It's not the fact that the action of spitting on somebody is the most degrading thing that you can do to another human being. What I'm concerned with is the response, because I don't think it's fair and reasonable to anticipate that players would react the way that we saw Dak Prescott react in the season opener and being composed. What you're gonna see is guys respond more like what we got from Jalen Ramsey, and God forbid, if you get the wrong one, it escalating into an incident that becomes ugly and mars the NFL. Similar to what we remember from those 90s Knicks Heat matchups where the NBA had to adopt a rule about players not coming off the bench for altercations because of how ugly that scene got. So that's my biggest concern with how the NFL is handling this, and I don't think they sent a strong enough message that spitting on somebody is a bright red line that should not be crossed.
I completely
Yeah, I agree. Before we get into what Stephen A was saying, I agree. 1 game, not nearly enough to deter this type of actions, and they definitely should look to suspend them for multiple games. Really, you know, I hate to say it, but you gotta really make an example out of this situation, because this can't be tolerated. Um, it's very, very disrespectful. And you definitely shouldn't be, just spitting on people, in life or in a game, no matter how heated it gets. And I do remember when Dak Prescott, he was spit on, and he kept his head cool when he could have definitely threw a punch or anything. But everyone's not gonna have that same temperament. And a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who he's always built his career off being trying to be that intimidating defensive back, you know, uh, toughness and stuff like that. He's not gonna take that from a wide receiver, not at all. Um, and like I said, for him to lie, that just kind of puts a lot into perspective as far as the type of person that Chase is, and Chase is a great talent, but sometimes your personality can it can override all the talent that you have, and really make your talent more minimal compared to how you act. So let's hear what Stephen A has to say.
Agree. I said that yesterday. I thought it should have been a minimum of 2 games. Minimum 2 games. And it's partially because of what happened with Jalen Carter. You already saw what happened to the season opener. You gave the punishment, and Jamar Chase did what he did, number one. Number two, he flat out lied. On camera, camera's rolling. I never opened my mouth. I never did anything. With a straight face. So now what he has to realize is that anything you say is going to be questionable from now on. Sure. Because, the cameras caught you, and you were telling a bold-faced lie to the media with the cameras rolling. I never opened my mouth. And clearly you spit right on him. It was clear, and it was clearly intentional. And we all know that's one of the most egregious things you can do to another human being. There's no doubt about that. But the fact that he did it was bad enough. The fact that he did it where there was precedent set where you knew, okay, there was a punishment that come down because you can't be doing stuff like that. That's number two. Number three, you lied through your face. You lied through your face. Now, you get paid about $507,000 a game. You should double that up. It should be a cool million plus.
Yeah, he's making $41 million a year, dog.
Exactly. That ain't much. That ain't much. But, but they'll tell you it's $1 million, $1 million. Fine. It should have been at least $1 million. He should be suspended for 2 games. And to me, I think the NFL dropped the ball.
I appreciate both of you and what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I would say this. The NFL has to stay consistent in their punishment. So what they gave Jalen Carter at the beginning of the season, you can't change because weeks have gone by if the player hasn't exhibited the behavior before. So I've been in there, and I deal with Troy Vincent. He and I are friends. We deal with stuff, punishment players.
Yep.
There has to be a precedent set, and you can't just get out of it because of what the player says, how he responds. Now, if in the offseason, because I appreciate what you're saying about how these things can escalate. And what you don't want to happen is it go from the field to the locker room to the buses. And we know, listen, our game is emotional as it is. There's violence involved in our game. You don't want this thing to continue to escalate. But the league will have to institute that before the season starts, as opposed to, because the first thing that would have happened is if they tried to levy a heavier punishment, it would have been appealed and they would have lost with an arbitrator because there's no precedent set. So the league, although it may not be enough, and I appreciate that, it's all you can basically do because it was already set.
You can't guarantee that. You can't.
So they're basically saying that the league dropped the ball with the 1 game suspension, and they're giving some insight as far as certain precedents that have already been set. So yeah, the league definitely needs to figure out a precedent for when things like this happen, and just depending on the degree of what the incident is, making sure that the suspension matches the action. So I definitely agree with that. Um, man, luckily this didn't get any bigger. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't something that happens off field, or I mean these guys are able to communicate with each other, may see each other. You never really know. Um, but I know one thing. This definitely isn't going to be the end of what this story is. Hate the fact that Jamar Chase lied about it. He should have definitely, been a man, and you know, um, really took accountability for what he did, for what we all seen, and man, it's just hopefully it's a learning lesson for him. And I do hope that it doesn't, you know, become something that spills out. But we really never know what's going to happen from this situation here. But I'm gonna go ahead and close this video out. Um, if there's any more updates, of course, I'll definitely keep you updated. But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you like the content. And once again, this is Justin Paul. Peace.